The first thing that shattered the quiet morning air was the trembling breath of a man who had forgotten what it felt like to hope. Arven stood in the doorway of his small apartment, still wearing the same shirt he had fallen asleep in, staring at the message glowing on his phone screen, a message from someone who claimed to be exactly what he needed, someone who had written words so gentle and understanding that he allowed himself, for the first time in years, to imagine a life beyond loneliness. But the moment he reached the café for the arranged meeting and saw the stares of strangers shifting toward him with pitiful curiosity, he realized something wasn't right. And when he finally spotted the young woman waiting at the table near the window, with sunlight pouring across her face and illuminating the burned scars that cascaded over half of her skin like melted glass, his heart slammed painfully against his ribs, not because of her scars, but because he instantly understood he had been set up. Someone had tricked him into this. Someone cruel. Someone laughing at both of them from behind some anonymous screen. If you believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, the ripple of love begins with you. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to support these stories that remind us we're all human. Arven froze in place, unable to move forward, unable to run away. For a moment, the world around him blurred, the soft clatter of cups, the filtered daylight dancing through hanging plants, the lazy hum of early chatter. He felt the weight of his 7-year-old daughter's drawing still tucked inside his jacket pocket, the one she sneaked in that morning with a whispered reminder that he deserved happiness, even if he didn't believe it himself. And now, confronting a stranger who likely expected rejection, he felt crushed by the fear that maybe hope had been another joke played on him by life. The young woman lifted her eyes, and Arven saw the quiet preparation in them, the way someone learns to brace themselves before they are hurt. Her name was Mireya, though he didn't know it yet, and she had dressed carefully in a soft lavender blouse, her hair falling in gentle waves that framed the unscarred side of her face. But it was the other side, the one partially covered by taut, uneven texture, that she tried not to hide. That alone struck him. She wasn't ashamed. She was simply exposed. Vulnerable in a way he recognized too well. He took a breath that trembled. Then he walked toward her. Mireya's hands fidgeted beneath the table as he approached. She had been warned by the cruel stranger pretending to be him, warned that he might not show up, warned that he might leave the moment he saw her. She had considered canceling a dozen times, but after years of hiding behind long sleeves and lowered gazes, she fought to give hope one more chance. And now she watched Arven sit down with a careful, hesitant movement, like a man carrying invisible damage. The daylight outside shifted as if the world leaned closer to hear their story. Mireya noticed the stiffness in his shoulders, the exhaustion embedded in the lines around his eyes, the faint imprint of a ring tan on his left hand. She wondered about his past the same way he wondered about hers. She had survived a house fire as a teenager, leaving her with scars that never let her forget that ordinary moments were not promised. He had survived heartbreak of a different kind, a wife who walked away when the weight of parenthood became too much, leaving him to raise their child alone, leaving him to fold himself into a shell so tight that no one could reach in. Suspense threaded itself between them, unspoken and tense. Arven felt the pressure of someone watching. 2 men at the counter were laughing quietly, glancing over, likely the ones who orchestrated the cruel setup. His jaw tightened. He wanted to protect this woman he hadn't even spoken to yet. Mireya saw the flicker of anger in his eyes and lowered hers in embarrassment, thinking she had disgusted him. But Arven's heart cracked at the sight. He imagined how many times she had been abandoned at tables like this, or worse, mocked. He didn't know her story, but he sensed that this moment cost her everything. Outside, a delivery truck rolled past, its headlights briefly flashing through the café window and washing them both in a cold white glow, like a spotlight demanding truth. Arven forced himself to breathe. He asked her softly, through hesitant tones the narrator must blend into the cinematic flow, what brought her here, why she agreed to meet him. Mireya explained in a voice barely above a whisper how she had received messages she thought were from him, how she believed someone finally saw her as more than her scars. Arven felt tense fury coil inside him, not for her appearance, but for the cruelty she'd endured. The waiter arrived, breaking the moment with a tray of water glasses. The sun tilted further, drawing golden streaks across the wooden floor, revealing dust floating like miniature constellations in the air. Everything felt oddly sacred, as if the world refused to let him walk away. Mireya sipped water with shaky hands, her scar catching the warm sunlight and glinting like a quiet battle medal. Arven found himself watching not out of shock but out of awe, a woman who had survived fire yet still dressed in lavender. He told her honestly that he too had been tricked, that he never sent those messages, and he watched her face fall as if every fragile hope she had rebuilt crumbled again. The raw devastation in her eyes made something inside him break open. He reached out instinctively, fingers brushing her wrist, promising through the narrator's smooth description that none of this was her fault. The café noise faded into a soft background blur. Time felt suspended. Arven saw a single tear gather on the scarred side of her face but remain unfallen, trembling like a tiny drop of courage clinging desperately to the edge. It hurt him in a way he didn't understand. Then, in a voice so faint he almost didn't hear her, she whispered a question that went straight to the core of his soul: "Is looks all that matter?" The words left her lips like a confession she had asked too many times, to too many who never deserved to hear it. Arven felt the gravity of her pain. She had asked not because she needed validation, but because she needed to know whether the world still held a place for someone like her, someone who had survived fire but still burned with the desire to be accepted, seen, and loved. He swallowed hard, realizing how life had tested them both differently but painfully. While he had lost trust in love, she had lost trust in humanity's kindness. And now fate placed them together in a moment built on cruelty but ready to transform into something meaningful. The story deepened as the hours passed. They walked out of the café into the soft daylight, the sky a muted blue with faint threads of white clouds drifting lazily above them. They wandered through a nearby park where the winter-bare trees cast long shadows like reaching fingers across the path. Arven listened as Mireya shared her struggles with therapy, her fear of mirrors, the way strangers stared as if her scars defined her entire existence. He opened up about his daughter, Elun, and the nights he cried silently so she wouldn't hear, scared he wasn't enough. Life had broken them in different ways, but standing side by side beneath the pale sky, they realized something quietly miraculous: they understood each other. Arven began noticing the beauty in her gentle gestures, her resilient spirit, the kindness she wore like sunlight. Mireya saw the tenderness behind his guarded expressions, his strength disguised beneath worry, the father inside him still fighting to give his daughter a better world. As they walked, their steps synchronized naturally, like two people who had unknowingly waited for the other. By the time they reached a wooden bench near the pond, a subtle warmth had settled between them, something unspoken yet deeply felt. Arven found himself imagining what it would be like to introduce her to Elun, and Mireya imagined what it would feel like to be welcomed into someone's life without having to hide. The world softened around them. As the narrator glides toward the emotional crescendo, viewers are invited. If this story touched your heart even halfway, show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to help these heartfelt stories reach more souls. Before the final emotional moment unfolds, the narrator gently requests: viewers, please comment your thoughts below, your words matter more than you know. When Arven and Mireya returned to the café parking lot, the early evening sun painted the sky in peach and rose gold hues. He hesitated before speaking, his voice trembling with sincerity as he told her that perhaps being tricked into meeting wasn't cruelty after all, perhaps it was fate's imperfect way of placing two broken pieces where they finally fit. Mireya turned to him, her breath catching in a way that echoed years of longing and fear. She whispered that she wasn't used to someone looking at her without flinching. Arven stepped closer, gently brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, tracing not the scar but the strength it represented. He told her she deserved someone who saw her heart before her face, and in that moment, the world felt still. Her eyes glistened, not with insecurity, but with blooming hope. As the daylight dimmed softly around them, they stood facing each other like two chapters finally merging into one story.